live. New works. Everything is working well. Couple testing errors.
Or so we hope.
Yeah. Hello, this is Intellectually, the show where we, the real estate professionals, teach you how to hold us professionals accountable. I'm Rob.
I am Chad.
Or Robert, however you want to put it. But yeah, we got a, what would we call her?
Oh, we have a special guest, even though she's not going to be a guest.
No, she's not going to be a guest. She's going to be she's already part of the team. Her name is Hannah. I was sick of multitasking the previous podcast, so Hannah's taken over all that. She's going to be in the background. Sorry to tell you that you're still going to have to look at us primarily, but every once in a while we put a camera on Hannah just to have some fun. So, Hannah, you are a real estate agent yourself, right?
Yes, I have been a real estate agent, for probably almost 2 years now. Yeah, licensed in Missouri and Illinois. So nice. We're rocking, we're rolling.
So yeah, if you guys want to work with Hannah as well, she's probably twice as good as Chad and I combined. So we definitely recommend you look her up. So we got, instead of just topics around, previous topics where we interviewed lenders, talked about vetting your agents, you two came up with something that we want to try this show. And what's that?
Well, Hannah did so graciously look up some common opinions from your average, home buyer, home seller, consumer.
The mic, remember.
And we're going to run through those, and you and I are essentially going to give our opinion on whether or not we agree or disagree with these opinions. Now, again, these are just opinions, of course.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to try and do my best to disagree with them, even if they're good opinions. So, Hannah, you want to take it off?
Yeah, I will get us rolling here with our first statement, which is I can get a better deal if I wait. What do we think about that one?
So I can get a better deal if I wait. We had a conversation about this one a little bit, and we want to narrow down what the most common wait would be. Like, are they looking at a particular house? Do they want to wait for that particular house to come down in price? Or are they waiting for the market? Do they want to wait for the market to stabilize in their favor?
I say we go ahead with the market.
Go with the market? Okay.
It can be more broad, and we're hearing this quite a bit.
Fair enough.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, so with as chaotic as the market is, 2020 to 2025, we had some huge booming different fluctuations between interest rates, up and down. We had buyer clientele going crazy, wanting to buy as many houses as they can. We had transactions going through a lot higher than traditional because people were waiving a bunch of contingencies. If you guys don't know what I mean by contingencies, tune into our podcast 2 episodes prior. But in regard to that, there's a lot of variables that would cause a person to want to wait. So do we agree with a buyer saying, I would like to wait, or even a seller saying, I would like to wait to sell my house, right?
And again, really, the question we have to ask is, why are you waiting?
Yeah.
Right? What is the reason you're waiting?
So let's narrow it down to 3 main reasons why somebody would wait, right? Buyers trying to wait for interest rates to come down, or sellers trying to wait for interest rates to come down. So that could be one.
Buyers would, backing off of that, again, hope that home prices will come down.
Home prices would come down. Yep. And then maybe the third one would be the buyer, once again, would be waiting for a better property to come onto the market, right? Whether you're a commercial buyer, a investor, or a residential buyer, you might be waiting for that diamond in the rough, right? Looking hard. I always advise that you are strict on your opinions with what you want out of your property. This is a lot of money. Most of the time, the most money you're ever going to spend, right? So be critical on what you're choosing, and don't hesitate to, use your agent to the fullest when it comes to viewing properties, right? Investigating properties, getting advice on them. Definitely don't choose the first car on the lot, in other words, right? That being said, will you ever find that perfect home?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, I don't think that's the right question to ask, though.
Okay.
Will you ever, I guess the real question is, will you ever be able to perfectly time the market?
Perfectly time the market? Yeah, I don't think so. You can't, no matter what people say the market's trends are going to be, what's going to happen to interest rates, what's going to happen to buying or housing prices. We don't know, right? We're all taking guesses. We're trying to get an understanding ourselves, and we'll be unpleasantly or pleasantly surprised as anybody else when the time comes. For example, what was it? Trump's buyout on the $200 billion worth of loans through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. People were going crazy saying, once this happens, it's going to boom the market, right? It's going to bring interest rates down. Lenders are going to start buying loans galore. Has that happened? No, not necessarily. We haven't seen crazy fluctuations, and it's been in process. There's been a lot of buying of those different, mortgages, and we haven't seen an extreme ratio like a lot of agents were getting excited about. So that being said, even your best of the best is still going to have trouble accurately predicting. So should you wait for, you said, how did you word it?
Timing the market.
Timing the market, right? No. You'll never be able to time the market. You find that house that you love, I would advise that you look for, especially in residential.
Yeah, and home buying process, it's a lengthy process. And the real estate market is known to be, it shifts quickly, right? You can start the process, and in 2 months, it can look completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, again, when we talk about the idea of waiting to buy or waiting to time the market, the real question you have to ask yourself is, A, what is your goal? Why are you buying a home or a property, whatever that may be? And right now, can you afford it?
Yeah.
Right? Because if those two things are true, you want a home or you want a property and you can't afford it, to me, in my eyes, that's always the best time to buy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's more about if you're ready. Consistent income, you got a steady job. Even if you don't plan on being in the city or that area for your entire life or your entire career, buying a property, creating some revenue isn't a bad idea. And that's the same idea. It's more specifically when it comes to investors. I have so many investors that get very nitpicky trying to perfect the numbers on their ROI, which is return on investment. And so many lenders in the industry are just like, get the property, right? You'll never find that perfect property. Get the property. And once you have that, continue to search for that next property. Continue, because the longer you wait when it comes to an investment property, that's simply more money you're losing, to something else.
We can talk about that a little bit, right? You buy maybe not the first or the perfect property now, right? But what are you doing over the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah.
While you're in that property, potentially searching for the next one, you're building equity.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
you're making those monthly payments, and you're taking equity away from the purchase, rather than if you were to just continue to rent, right? Where's that money going, right?
Yeah.
To your landlord.
Yeah.
So
no, you're making perfect sense. So, and then obviously commercial's a little bit crazier, and there's a lot more variables holding you accountable. If depending on what kind of field your industry's in, is really going to dictate what kind of property you want, depending on the clientele that you have in the area, the zoning, all that jazz. So, commercial's a lot deeper analysis, and when it comes to clients that I have in the commercial atmosphere, whether they're looking at buying, selling, or leasing out the property, it's definitely more of a not one glove fits all, right? Got to dig in with those kind of clientele.
So essentially, final thoughts, right? The idea of timing the market, while in some circumstances, in some ways, it can be appealing and it can work out.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, delaying that purchase and trying to time it out, again, we have no idea what the future beholds. If you delay it and it doesn't work out in your favor, that can only end up delaying your goals to get into a home even longer, right?
Don't rush, but don't get analysis paralysis, right? Yeah. What we got next?
All right. Next up, we've got, so this would kind of probably be a potential seller coming up to you with this statement, but I think my house is worth more than the market says.
Okay.
That's an interesting one. When you talk about the market and then what the market, quote unquote, says, what does that mean? Right? When we talk about the market, and again, you are comparing the property that you have to sell, and you feel or you believe, and it may be even true or not true, that it's, I guess, above market value. What does that mean, Rob?
Yeah. So market value is always an opinion until the property sells. You know, every opinion is always going to be an opinion. I guess I'm saying opinion too much, but even an appraiser, right? That's a professional human being. Human beings make mistakes. We are never 100% positive, no matter how confident we are. I've seen appraisers appraise properties literally off by 20,000 plus, right? And if that's the case, what's the property value at that point? So when I have, like, for example, for sale by owners are the biggest caveats for this. They're going to come to us as agents when we speak to them, and they're going to be like, yeah, I really feel, proud of this property, and I don't blame you. It's your home. It's your baby. And you're probably going to appraise it or value it a little bit above what market average is going to say. And I don't disagree with their analysis, because when it comes to market average, I would say market average is a tame number. Yeah. Most agents in the industry are also going to conclude tame numbers so they don't open up too much overpromise, underdeliver mentality. And I don't blame them for doing that. But if you get yourself a good agent that you've vetted very well, check out our first podcast on that one. But if you get a good agent that you've vetted very well and you believe to the point that they understand the market, they understand the industry, they know how to negotiate, and they can value your property correctly, so you're not going to get screwed over by the appraisal if it's a lender, right? If it's a house being purchased under a loan. And as well, they're not going to price too high to scare buyers away, but not too low to collectively get too many buyers to make it too chaotic, I would argue, right? All in all, if you got a good agent, you could get above market value, I would argue. So my house is worth more than market value could aesthetically be true. You just got to make sure you got somebody who's skilled enough to get that market value price, if you will. That being said, some for sale by owners overvalue their property by $50,000+. And those are tough conversations. We've lost potential clients because of those conversations. We don't want to set false expectations to close somebody down, though. And when it comes to that, my house is worth more than market value. Sometimes that is incorrect based off your degree of what it could be worth more by. That's my thought. What's your thought?
I mean, at the end of the day, your house is worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Yep.
Right? And a good agent or a really good agent can cover up some of those underlying, I guess, I don't want to say issues or caveats to, selling your home. You have a good agent that can get you more value for their property than, I guess, what quote unquote the market says.
Yeah.
You have a good agent, right? But then when you're talking about 50,000, 100,000, depending on the price of the property over, I thought it was almost funny where you said lost clients due to that, right?
Lost potential clients, yeah.
But also that was a decision that you made.
Yeah, you don't want to get in bed with a client that's going to be unrealistic.
Right.
Elaborate, if you don't mind. I did also, and I think it could use elaboration, what I mean by no trouble with the appraiser if it's a property being purchased via financing. What would happen with, like, say you overprice a property and somebody does come along and it's a buyer and they have an FHA or a conventional loan and they're like, yeah, I'll give you the $50,000 more than the market value, quote unquote, is. Mm-hmm. What could happen when it comes to the appraiser getting involved?
The buyer getting the loan may very well be comfortable spending $50,000 more on this property than what it may say it's worth. They may say it's worth or may feel it's worth, but there's going to be one party that's not going to agree with that if the appraisal doesn't come up, and it's the one who's actually giving the money.
Yeah.
Your lender. Your lender, if you're going through an FHA or any conventional loan, you're using financing, getting a mortgage for a house, typically, most of the time, the banks get what? They get an appraisal.
Third-party opinion.
On the house, because as a lender, they want to know from a trusted affiliate of theirs.
Well, not affiliate of theirs.
Excuse me.
Appraiser is
correct.
Third party.
Third party, not affiliate of theirs, but again, someone that they trust, right, to give them their honest value of that property. And if it comes in lower than what that offer is, then there's a gap that needs to be filled somewhere.
Yeah, so you price it $50,000 more, say it's a $300,000 house, and the buyer, makes an offer, and you guys go under contract on a $350,000 purchase price. That appraiser comes in and says, no, this puppy's only worth $300,000, and I'm going to tell the bank, which, the bank's not going to give us more than $300,000.
The bank's going to be like, yeah.
You got to renegotiate.
They're saying
anyways.
it's worth
yeah.
$300,000. That's all I'm giving you.
Yeah.
And if you're the buyer and you don't have an extra $50,000 laying around, you're not buying that property.
No, and on top of that, right, that buyer got approved by their loan with the amount that they had in their savings, so they might not even be able to fork up that extra amount to make the difference, and you, the seller, might have to bring it down or end the contract and relist it. Another thing, just to kind of elaborate on that mentality, you definitely can list a property any price you want on the market. But if you list too high and you risk that appraiser holding it accountable, then you are cutting off possibly 80% of your clientele to sell to, because now you only have cash buyers, right? Aesthetically cash buyers. Anybody else, even a conventional loan, is going to require an appraisal from the lender to prove that the value of the asset can back the loan up, right?
Question for you.
Yep.
In your experience, and I know this can be a little different areas you go, but approximately how long do you think it would take you as an experienced real estate agent, how long for a home of one of your listings to sell on the market for you to determine whether or not it's overpriced or not?
Well, I usually go by a 2-week rule, right? And it's based off opinion and sorry, I can't think of the word, but opinion, the time of the year, and then finally how much movement this listing has, right?
There's positioning, how I would argue how the listing or the property is positioned within the market.
100%. So you got the cold season, you're going to just simply be slower. People are, hunkered down, whatever you would say, in the cold. They don't want to go outside. Also, properties look less attractive, so you're not as motivated to go see that property. No flowers, no green.
Plus, people aren't really wanting to move all their stuff in the middle of dead winter, especially here in St. Louis.
You just simply got less buyers, so you got to account for the less showings in that fashion. But if you're listing a property, there are a lot of statistics that show whether or not your property is just of any interest, and if people aren't choosing to come see it, if you're advertising and if we do very good advertising, if we're not getting the results that are traditional, we understand that area just isn't hitting that value for that home, right? You could have a $300,000 house that's worth $300,000, but it's going to suffer from something called regression if the rest of the houses are $200,000, because your buyers in that area are going to have a $200,000 mortgage capability or pre-approval. So being that outlier is going to make it hard to sell as well. That's just one variable of probably 100 that would articulate the true value of your house that would then conclude once somebody can go under contract with you. All in all, 2 weeks, we read it, how many showings, how much interest, how many response we get through all our different forms of advertising. And then finally, we might run, depending on the house, we wouldn't do it with a house that, what's the word? Why can't I think of my words today? A distressed property. But we wouldn't do an open house with a distressed property, but a move-in ready turnkey property. If you're not getting the results from an open house, that's another variable to show you that you might be overpriced. All in all, one closing thought to that in the appraisal is this, right? The appraiser coming out to a property, this is just another fact about the appraiser. When he comes out to, or she comes out to a property prior to a contract or prior to being listed and just to evaluate your house, they're doing one of what I would argue is 3 variables that contribute to their decision making. And they're only doing one. All 3 are, they want to pacify and not jeopardize the market. They don't want to skew the market. They got to hold it to its value. But once you get a buyer and seller involved, they definitely will recognize the buyer has money and is willing to purchase that. So if you have a property that is not under contract versus a property that is under contract, the appraiser is going to take that into account. I don't care what they say. They're going to see this buyer wants to buy it for that certain amount. So they're going to be like, all right, this is a realistic number. Somebody actually wants to buy it. And that'll, I would argue, take into account. This is an opinion, of course. Keep that in mind. The third thing that I would argue should take into account is the fact that he is being hired by a lender, right? And those lenders, you know, are a source of income and a source of business for those appraisers, and they can't be unrealistic. They can't go crazy. So you got to pacify the buyers, or you got to pacify the lenders, the sellers of the property. You got to take into account that the buyer's willing to purchase it for that price. And then the third thing is they definitely do need to be ethical, moral, and agreeable to the actual market value. If you go in to get an appraisal for your property prior to it going under contract, you're losing that pacify the lender and seller variable, and you're losing that buyer is willing to pay for your property at that amount variable, and you're only taking into the market average and keeping it clean. So once again, I see people get an appraisal on their property and it's off by $20,000, $30,000 simply because those two variables, I would argue, are not involved. So that being said, that's my thought process on that. What, you got any closing ideas or?
Nope.
All right. That's what I figured.
I do not.
How'd I do? I'm talking too much.
No, it was good.
I'm sorry.
It's called passion. You love that
Passion.
word, Rob. You love the word
somebody,
passion.
I forget who it was, but he should go into like war negotiations or disputes or something like that, because I was getting a little excited about something and it sounded angry, and I was like, dude, I'm sorry. And he's like, no, I love the passion. I was like, I'm going to steal that from you. It's a very good way to control the scene.
All right, Hannah, what's next?
All right, next up we've got, I would assume this would also come from a client. Maybe, I guess it could also come from an agent, but the statement is that lowball offers are disrespectful.
Yes or no? What do you think?
Disagree.
Disagree. I like it. So we're going to pause real quick. Chad and I are going to fight this physically, and the winner is the answer. Deal? Yes and no on my side. Chad, you say completely disagree?
Completely.
Are you up for being reasoned with? Or should we just, next question?
I'm not scared of him.
Why do you disagree?
To me, as an agent,
Can I have some of your water?
give me any offer and all offers. No, realistically, you know, I look at it from both ends. Okay. As a seller, right, or I should say, as an agent, we are hired on. One of the largest values of hiring an agent, especially an experienced agent like you and I, are we completely take the emotion out of most likely the biggest financial decision of a seller or home buyer's life.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, you have this beautiful home. Let's just say a beautiful home out
It's
in
your
St.
baby.
Out in St. Charles, $450,000
Yep.
property. Someone comes in, an investor, whoever the case may be, might try looking for a deal. They offer you $250. Right? In my eyes, as the seller, yeah, you can be upset all you want, and you can feel disrespected all you want, and you,
Do
again,
it.
you
Love the
don't
passion.
you don't have to accept the offer, right? But as an agent, right, I can see both sides of it.
Oh, yeah.
You've got an individual that is, fishing with dynamite in a lot of ways. Coming in, placing super low offers on a house. Why? Because in their experience, they have had offers accepted at that point with quote unquote being lowballed, right? They got a phenomenal deal. It's happening. It might happen 1 out of every 100, whatever the case may be.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
I don't
right?
knock them for trying, but I also don't knock the seller to feel disrespected in the offer. And the one thing that I can tell them, or I love to be able to tell them, is no is a complete sentence. If that is not something that, if that offer feels disrespectful or is not even close to what you're looking for, tell them no.
We also, we had this conversation earlier too. There's a benefit of it, and there's also a way to make it so it doesn't pressure the seller. You know, I've plenty of times, and Chad's plenty of times, gone to the seller and saying like, hey, do you got like a bottom number? And if you don't get this number, then you're not even entertaining that offer. And if they say, yeah, this is my bottom number, then, we get an offer. We don't even have to bother you, the seller, with that offer. Say you're trying to sell a $300,000 house and you're like, my bottom is $250,000. Absolutely. Somebody comes in and they say $220,000. You're like, sorry, man, like I'm going to instantly decline this because you are not hitting the bottom number. Or we can just, just not entertain it in any way. We're always probably like, unless, I don't know, you can't get a hold of. I've never not responded to an offer. I've never not had a conversation over the phone with the agent. By the way, it really irks me when agents aren't willing to actually talk on the phone. One of your jobs are negotiations. And if you're going to try and negotiate via email and text message, I don't think you should be in this industry. But aside that, I'm probably going to get a lot of rap for that. Either way, I'm going to always try to talk to that agent no matter what, just to see, pick their brain, what's going on with their head. We've had low balls come in probably 10, maybe even 15% below asking price. And we countered with just a couple $1,000s off. And they're like, yeah, okay. So, deals have been created from really low ball offers. That's the first thing that I'm thinking of. One, you don't have to bother the seller. Just we would set those expectations up with you prior. Two, I get a lot of times people or agents come in and they say, hey, I have an interested buyer. We're kind of, comparing and contrasting this property with others. And they'll ask, do you have any interest or offers? And we can say, yeah, I got an offer. We don't got to say it was a low ball, but we also don't, I never want to lie in a transaction and be unethical. So now you just gave me the right to say, yeah, I received an offer, right? That's all I'm going to say. And that might put that other buyer on their toes to make some more rash moves on pace. So send us an offer. And if it's low ball, it becomes at least, at worst case scenario, a negotiation tool that we can use, right? That's my thought. That's why you disagree. You think it's good. And I just supported you in every way, right?
I don't see them as disrespectful.
Yes.
So yes, I disagree.
But I think right when I say this, you're going to say, oh, you're right. You ready? We're only thinking on the seller's behalf. Only thinking, if we go in and think of us representing the buyer, I would.
I do. You definitely have to look at that more strategically.
Yeah. Agreed.
But at the same time.
So that's what I mean by the yes and no. If I'm going to make an offer that's a low ball, I do always educate my client. And you actually had this situation. I was there when you were educating your client about it. You're like, yeah, no, I'll do whatever you want me to do. But I will advise, we got to create, if you really want this property, we got to create a good relationship with this individual, because this isn't like buying a pair of shoes, right? This isn't closing down a quick stock or something. We're done. Send it. You're about to get into a 30 to 40 day transaction period in which you're investigating this property. You might ask for other accountabilities, renegotiations, whatever contingencies you have on your contract. This is a can of worms. So, you want to create a good relationship with the seller. Also, and then I'll let you take over, make sure you have a good agent that knows how to present your low ball, right? Especially if you want the property. Anybody can hire somebody just to send in an offer. Boom, here's a low ball, here's a low ball, here's a low ball. That agent, if they're not willing to go in and create that relationship with that seller, then I probably wouldn't want them if you're planning on getting a good deal on a property. Right?
Yes, if you plan on going in and again trying to get a massive deal or
trying to get a deal
to lowball, right? You better make sure you find an agent who's not afraid to have awkward conversations, because it's going to happen. We talked about that, yeah.
Awkward is good for us.
One of my very first deals, the one out in Forestel, right? I was able to save my buyers $85,000 on a $500,000 house by simply just presenting the question to the other agent, quite like you were talking about earlier, right?
And you said that wasn't an instant yes either. That took a lot of relationship building with that seller.
And it wasn't, And it was funny because again, early on in my career, when as a real estate agent, getting over those humps of being awkward, I stewed on calling this agent and being like, oh man, he's gonna just instantly just.
You told me the other day you love it now.
He's gonna. Again, think I'm coming in disrespectful, not even entertain it. But I was upfront and honest with them. I was like, listen, We have fully qualified buyers that are ready. They love this house. They want it. This is where we're at. In a lot of ways, this is where we feel that the value is off.
Yep. And you said that if I remember correctly, that was like 2 months worth of conversation.
Oh yeah.
Am I right? You were like, you built a good relationship with that agent. He was a good agent.
He was. The buyers, one of the main pieces that I got to keep in the back of my pocket is they were completely willing to walk and continue looking.
Yeah, which is a healthy thing.
That was not a house that they were like, I absolutely need to have. At this certain price, it is a beautiful house, but at this certain price, we're buyers. And again, I originally came in $100,000 lower to this agent, and he was like, "Oof, like that's very far off." And we met again. I don't want to stay in the middle because we got the better end of that deal. But
well, I mean, you could have
again, and it's an argument, right?
But it could go back to the other thing, like. Was the agent, the seller that they had, did the seller overvalue the property? And did the agent know that? But the agent was like, maybe, who knows if the agent, and he was a good agent, maybe he set expectations. He's like, I unfortunately don't believe, from my professional opinion, it's not going to sell for this amount, but I'm willing to test the market out. And if the market doesn't work out the way, that I'm unfortunately projecting, you said 3 minutes? 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Okay, I was like, 2 minutes left.
IT guy back here is...
Your IT guy?
I'm the IT guy, yeah.
Yeah, so... in regard to that, though, who knows if the agent set good expectations and said, I'm willing to try and prove this opinion for you. And then he proved it, and you guys went under contract. If you didn't budge, imagine the experience your buyers would have had. Imagine the experience the sellers would have had when that appraiser got out there, right?
And one of the most important details that needs to be, because you were talking about relationships earlier, for a fact, I can tell you the strong relationship that I had with my buyer clients, the strong relationship I knew that the listing agent had with the seller were very strong. Yeah. And the relationship that I created with the other agent. So there was 3 separate, really solid, strong relationships that were built that, again, better relationships, hopefully easier and better communication, better understanding. We came to a conclusion. And buyers and sellers both walked out of there happy. And that home was on the market quite some time. Yeah.
So you were strategic about it.
Yes.
But on another thing I do want to point out is you said good relationship. When Chad says good relationship, we don't mean Chad's like, you like baseball? I love baseball kind of idea. You have a kid in karate class? I got a kid in karate class. That's not what we mean by good relationship. That's a good friendship. But when we say relationship, we're saying professional relationship, right? We mean more along the lines of...
Again, I mean, you're talking accountability and setting expectations, not someone that's going to come in and just be able to talk the talk on what sports you like, but also to get real with you and be like, listen, this is what you want. This is what's
properly set expectations. Properly set expectations. And make sure those expectations are understood via the why, not just the what. That's what we mean by good relationship. Chad, you do it very well. I hope I do it well. The idea of just being absolute, don't be scared of those absolutes. This is what we're looking at. This is also what we're looking at. These are the things that are going to come from my professional opinion. That's the relationship we try to set up. And it's
funny, we built such a strong relationship by disagreeing with one another.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree with that.
I think you and I argue more than we conclude. So that's good. Poor Hannah has to deal with it a lot. We just sit here. I on the regular.
Not Hannah, just the IT guy, but the mediator.
Yeah,
as well.
Mediator. But no, on the regular, you'll be like, let me just get some popcorn. And me and Chad are just going deep into what was one time we were like, is brownie? What was it? Is
brownie a cake? We'll have our own podcast on
brownie
that
a
one.
Cake. We went, I think, for an hour in total because you guys sent us, Chad and I, to get something. And the whole trip there and back is brownie a cake. And then when we got back, we kept going. So, yeah, that's painful.
My opinion lost, by the way.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you represented a seller and I represented a buyer and they're just like, they never get anything done but they concluded if cookies are,
a brownie is not a cake. All right, next one.
Next statement we have here. It kind of goes along the same idea as the last one. So we're still kind of talking about offers here. Our last one was lowball offers are disrespectful. We kind of talked through that. This one is the first offer sets the tone?
First offer sets the tone. Depends on the scenario.
Yeah, I hate the way that's worded, but I mean, yes, it does. And it whether or not it's a good offer or a bad offer, it's setting some sort of tone. You know, I like the more premise of the saying the first offer is always the best offer. I don't know. To me, that's a little bit more clear than the first offer sets the tone. What do you think?
First offer is not always the best.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but that is a common opinion, I guess, quote unquote, that you can see.
Watch out, talking to your mic. But yeah,
yes.
In regard to first offer setting the tone, there's a couple different scenarios there. A lot of agents like to proactively set expectations on how they handle the negotiation process, especially in a house that they know is going to get a lot of bids. You know, they have a good value. It's in a good area. It's in a flamboyant time frame. And the usual trend that they'll pull there is, we're going to have this open house Saturday. We're going live Thursday, the day, 2 days before Saturday, and we're accepting, we're reviewing offers Monday and accepting them on Tuesday, So please make sure your offers coming in have no earlier and no later acceptance by Tuesday at 6 o'clock, they might say. That's a traditional route they take, and it's a good idea to help your seller who's not doing this every day, who doesn't understand the pros and cons of how to view offers, and gives them a little bit more organized and correlated time. And it also gives you the upper hand when it comes to these offers coming in. That being said, if somebody comes in and offers something well above, beautiful offer, all in cash, right? No contingencies, you're probably going to be able to manipulate those expectations the agent set for Tuesday. You'll have a little bit more upper hand. But if not, I would actually not want to be the first offer coming in that scenario, especially if I'm just trying to be competitive. Say it's a $300,000 house and it's in a good area, and it's going to value at that price, might even go up all the way to 320 in a bidding war. By you going in and offering 305 and you have contingencies on there, and you do it on the Friday and they're reviewing Monday night, I might not recommend it. Right? Because you might wash away, you might get forgotten in the background, and you're going to have to end up going back in anyways, right? So what I usually advise my buyers in those scenarios, if they're trying to not overpay for the property and get themselves into a situation, I recommend that we wait out till Sunday, wait out the open house, let a couple other offers come in to set the tone, right? So maybe I still agree with that, but not always the best offer. You and I are on the same page there. I tell them to wait. Let's feel it out. Then I'm going to get a hold of the agent. We're going to, have a little chat, kind of feel them out, see what I can pull when it comes to understanding what they have in their boat right now. And then I would recommend we make an offer based off my analysis. But that's only if other offers come in. So first offer sets the tone. Could be true. Is it the best? Absolutely not all the time.
No.
Yeah. Now, that being said, there's the other scenario where if you're just selling a property, maybe it's foreclosed, maybe it's just a property that's turnkey but outdated, and it's not as competitive, and you're not going to have as much going on. Getting in there quickly could create a negotiation tactic and help you save money versus waiting for another offer to come in, and now you're competing to that offer, and the seller's a little bit more inclined to, or less inclined to negotiate, if you will. So 2 scenarios there that go through my head.
How many times have you been looking at a property with a buyer, I guess that would more like be in coming soon status, one that's not listed yet or officially on the market, that your buyers see?
I got 3 buyers right now.
Absolutely. And it could be without even, they're like, I want to be the first ones in there, and I want to make how do you typically handle that, especially when it's in coming soon status?
So there's 2 rules. Would you just wave us? You said what?
No, you're good, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Come on. Talk into your mic. Chad has the problem of being too human, and he likes to look at you.
We're
while
robots.
He talks
We're
to
supposed to be robots.
I don't think I've looked at Hannah once.
No, I'm saying camera. He's looking at me. He likes to look at you in general. Gaze deep in the eyes. But in regard to that question, I got 3 buyers. You know who you are. That always send me coming soon listings, and we're always trying to gauge how we want to handle it because we know the property. These 3 buyers only want the most popular property, and I don't blame you, right? You're going to buy a house, you're going to spend some money, get something good. That being said, coming soon status actually holds an accountability. According to the MLS, the Multiple Listing Service, that's your local internal system that agents use to handle and communicate information about properties and past and current sales. The Multiple Listing Service, if it's incoming soon status on that, you are accountable to not show that property. So if a buyer comes to me and says, hey, can we get in there early? You can't allow somebody to view your property early unless you plan to go active earlier. So if you let a buyer, prospective buyer come into your property and it's in coming soon status, you had better put it on active status. And on top of that, there could also be, it could be considered still manipulation in tactic, just due to the fact that when you put coming soon status, agents see when you plan to go live. And there was one situation in which we had a property in coming soon status ourselves, and the buyer really wanted it. He was doing all cash, and we were like, yeah, and he wanted to come in and see it early. We couldn't let him see it early, so he was like, well, what if I just make you an offer right now? And I put contingent on viewing it. And we were confident that he wanted the property, and we were more comfortable with that. That way, if we got held accountable by MLS, NAR, or even the MREC, which stands for Missouri Real Estate Commission, if we got held accountable in that act, we'd be able to say, hey, there was no malintentions here. This was just a very, very aggressive buyer, and he made an offer, and we decided to go under contract after going active, waiting I think we waited 48 hours. And then I reached out to every single agent that showed any interest in the property, and I set clear expectations and saying, hey guys, you got a 24-hour period to compete against this. Nobody did, and everything turned out okay. But that being said, in regard to it, if it's in coming soon status, you're going to have to wait unless you want to be very aggressive to convince that agent to put it live on the market and go through that turmoil. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool. All right. How much time do we got?
I think we're about ready to wrap it.
Wrap it? What are we at?
41.
41. Do we want to do one more or no?
It's up to you guys.
We don't have commercials, so we can give you guys just more content. Should we get commercials?
No.
Should we sell
Sponsored
ourselves?
by.
Sponsored by. Who do we want to be sponsored?
Do we want to go over 45 minutes, though?
Well, let's do one more and close it down. Deal?
Let's do it.
All right. So one here that I know Rob was excited for, so I wanted to get this one in here, was open houses are pointless.
Yeah. Do you agree, Chad?
No,
I don't agree either.
While, don't get me wrong, while open houses can be used as a marketing tool for agents, I don't want to sit here and lie and say that they're not. The whole purpose and the whole ideology behind selling a house in this property, or a property in this market or any market for that case, is to maximize the amount of the pool of potential buyers that the property brings. That's what we know for sure has been linked directly to homes selling, I would guess, quote unquote, for a premium, right?
Yeah.
Is the amount of potential buyer pool they have, the amount of traffic, the amount of people that they have coming through their house.
And it's hard to argue against that, right? That's laws of sales in general. That's laws of marketing,
Regardless of what anyone says or anyone thinks about open houses, they bring in foot traffic. They bring in people to see your house. The more people that you get to see to come in to see the property, most likely means there's a better chance of getting more offers. More offers means a better chance of getting a higher offer.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of things. It's almost like, why would you not do an open house? Even if there's one party that comes through, what happens if that's the party that buys your house? You don't know.
Yeah. So thinking to that, I like to narrow it down into 3 reasons, right? And then I'm also going to answer your question. Why would you not do an open house if it's a distressed property? I don't think people are going to come to and be like, look, Johnny, that we could put the Christmas tree right there and there's no drywall. No, I wouldn't do an open house on a distressed property or a property that needs serious work. And I'm sure you agree. We're talking about turnkey properties. Should we do open houses? One, a lot of people and some agents will tell you open houses aren't worth it, or have no point, and simply used to collect leads, buyer leads, right? We talk to a person walking through that door. They might not have an agent representing them. We follow up with them. Heck yeah, if we're not aggressive, if we're not actual real estate agents, we wouldn't capitalize on that. Yeah, we're definitely going to capitalize on that if a buyer walks through and they're not represented. But that being said, that has no reason with why we are actually doing the open house. The open house is to benefit you, and so we can sleep at night, because there's two major purposes behind an open house. One, and I can give you this idea, I'll bet you if you go back to the agent that said open houses are pointless, you would then ask him, hey, is a face-to-face interactive, is a face-to-face interaction any less valuable than any other form of interaction? That agent will be like, no. Phone calls, text messages, letters, anything is all going to be less valuable than a face-to-face interaction. They will say that. I can't think of an agent that wouldn't say that, but I'll bet you that same agent that said open houses are pointless will then have to bite their tongue, because that's a face-to-face interaction. You are giving us the ability to speak and amplify your potential buyer into becoming more excited, closing down, making that final, okay, I'm comfortable with this, let's move forward with it. And I got a perfect case and scenario. There's been 2 times specifically that I can identify where you, working an open house with me, have closed the buyer down because they talked to you. Now, I will be clear. A salesperson is not somebody who convinces somebody to purchase a product. Absolutely not. A salesperson is somebody who convinces an individual who's already wanted to purchase the product that now is the time they can trust to do it, right? So anytime a salesperson says, yeah, I convinced this person to buy it, they would have never bought this product. They're lying to themselves. Salespeople find that individual that already wants to purchase it, but just is holding off for a reason. And then they finally give them the confidence to do that. Usually it's the salesperson themselves that individual is confident enough to purchase it through. And that's where you get that concept of you sell yourself, not the product.
What better way and what better place to do that other than an open house?
In an open house, right? So perfect scenario, we had a property that was for sale by owner for $150,000 or $450,000. We did a valuation on it. We're like, you're actually undervaluing this property. Luckily, they didn't sell it in time, and we talked to them soon enough. They went under contract with us. We listed it for $480,000. Chad worked an open house with me, and he talked to the buyer that walked in, and they said, we've been looking at this property when it was for sale by owner last month, and they held off. They wanted to buy it. They just held off for some reason. Chad came face to face with them, pacified all their concerns, amplified their interest in the property. That evening, they made an offer. I 100% believe it was because you were personally involved with the face-to-face context. And to top it off, they paid $30,000 more. They wanted the product. They just needed that last seal.
You know what I'm thinking about? Their agent should be sending me a Christmas card.
Yeah, right. But in other words, no, open houses tremendously valuable. It's, I guess you would argue, it's the last form of retail when it comes to real estate. But yeah, I'm rambling. Do you have anything else you want to close out on that regard?
I do not.
Okay, cool. I guess, yeah, we'll wrap it up. Sorry for going over. This was the Intellectually podcast / show. Once again, the show that we teach you to hold us, the professionals, accountable. If you guys have any opinions or interests on what you would like us to cover, definitely put in the comments, like and share, all that jazz. We love the support, and definitely reach out to us if you want to talk to a real estate professional in the field. We love this stuff, so we're always happy to talk, pressure-free, right? We'll have a good weekend, or no week. It's Wednesday. This is coming out, so I'll see you guys.